I was kind of half expecting it to turn out to be Minox, but not this time. So, this is my review for the third episode of Star Wars The Bad Batch. Before I actually get into reviewing the episode proper, there's something that I want to get out of the way up front and also explain why. This may well be the last episode-specific review I do for this show. Now, let me be clear. It's not because I don't like the show. It's not because I think the show's bad. And it's not because my criticisms have resulted in people dogpiling me and now I'm afraid to talk about it. It's nothing like that. It's just that the way that the show is structured to be telling an overall story and then have very, to be honest, fairly predictable and expected self-contained stories within each episode that so far, while good, have done little to surprise me, and they're only a half hour long. I honestly kind of struggle to fill a review. I end up with not a lot to talk about. I expect I'll have a lot more to talk about once the season is done and I can look at the overall story and really talk about that. But because that's something that's just kind of plugging away in small bits and then the more episodic elements don't honestly give me that much to talk about either, at least not so far, especially not after I had a lot more to say about the first episode because it was longer, it was setting up stuff, so I had a lot more to talk about. But I honestly had this problem with the second episode too, in terms of trying to do a review on it. There isn't much for me to say, and it doesn't do me any good to add something onto my schedule where I'm going to be struggling to try and fill the time. Now, if I do episode reviews on this in the future, it'll be because a specific episode really did something that I want to talk about. Hopefully because it did something really good, although if it does something really stupid, I might want to talk about that too. And unless that happens somewhere along the line, you can probably expect an overview review once the season is done. But this is going to be the last episode-specific review, at least for a bit. Watch I say that and then they do something really surprising and drop some kind of bombshell I wasn't expecting in the next episode. I'm going to have to talk about it. And if they do that, it would be just to spite me and for no other reason. How about we actually talk about this third episode now a bit? So it's basically picking up on one thread and giving us one self-contained thing to deal with. The thread that it's picking up on is with Crosshair and how the things are moving forward for the Imperial forces. And we kind of now land on one of the things I found myself thinking, why is this an either or in the first place? And I'm a little it took you 3 episodes to get there, which is that because of how expensive getting the clones are, and it's much cheaper to conscript people, and this was brought up already. Tarkin was floating the idea of shutting down the clones and bringing in conscripts. But that was floated then as if it was going to be an either or. We either do this or this. But now we have this new guy, Rampart, show up who's like, we can do both. We can have a very well-trained clone lead a squad of conscripts and build the training things and bring them up to speed and all of that. And that's basically what we get here. And, I mean, part of what's sort of odd about this is that what happens on mission, now, granted, the leadership doesn't really know that this happened, but what happens on mission is basically not that far off from what happened when Squad 99 went. The only difference is because Crosshair is in charge instead of Hunter, he's the only one who doesn't feel any issue with gunning down civilians, and he's in charge now. That means that's a thing that they're going to do, even though the people underneath him all have reservations, and he just shoots the one who happens to be the most vocal about it. Spoilers for the episode, by the way. It's a half hour. Why would you not just watch it before coming here? Moving on. So, it's a little funny to me that what happened in terms of how the troops behaved from a perspective of what Tarkin and Rampart are after, it actually didn't really go any better than last time. The only difference was a different guy was in charge, and he ensured that it went the way that they were ordered. But the actual rest of the squad, no, they were not okay with this, just like last time, Which again, just kind of makes me laugh at this whole debate going on, what's better, the clones or the conscripts, and I'm looking at this going, you're kind of running into the same problem with both right now, or at least, especially given that you're focusing on these enhanced clones that don't have the chip. But I mean, like, it's fine. It makes sense. I'm not knocking it. I just found that amusing. And then we've got the plot that is the more episodic thing, which is something clips them in hyperspace. They land on a planet. They need to do repairs. Something on the planet is making repairs difficult. They deal with it. They leave. I mean, it's a stop-off. That's the bulk of it. Now, here's one of the other reasons why I think I need to not keep doing reviews on this. I keep finding myself wanting to rewrite the episodes. Not drastically, but just like, okay, I see what you were doing, but the way you did it undermines itself. And I've run into this with this thing already. I noted it in the very first episode when I talked about Crosshair and how having him seem like such a jerk before they cranked up his chip so that he sided with the Empire made me not really care that happened, because with the way he was behaving, I totally would have believed that he just would have done that voluntarily anyways. So, like, if they were trying to get tragedy out of it, they undercut it by him being such a jerk at the open. So here, what they're trying to accomplish, and like I said, this is one of the reasons that maybe I'm not going to talk about it as much, because like, I come off like a pompous ass saying I could have written it better, but like, this is what goes on in my head. So here, the main intended takeaway by the end of the episode, and like, I did this last time too. So last time, second episode, the main takeaway was to establish why Omega, last time I kept calling her Echo, which was bad enough, but like was really bad because there actually is a character called Echo. But yeah, so Omega had to be established as to why they couldn't leave her with someone else and why she was going to go with the squad. And while that was the purpose of the previous episode, I don't think they did it particularly smoothly or well. And I talked about that then. I mean, Link, I suppose. Now here, the purpose is to establish her more as a proper member of the squad as opposed to a tag-along. And it does that, but again, kind of clunkily and in a way that undermines itself. Here's why. The way in which she establishes her value and sort of having a place within the squad is by finishing the mission that Hunter started, but he kind of gets knocked out, so she completes it. And, like, that's fine. Here's what kind of undercuts that, though. It seemed like they had already, a little bit reluctantly, but had already accepted her as part of the squad. Like, the reason she's out there with Hunter is because she says, I'm a member of this squad, I want to go. And they let her. They've already given into the premise that she is part of the squad. Maybe they don't fully trust her abilities yet, but the way that it feels like that it's trying to set up and what it feels like it's trying to say is just, and now she's a proper member of the squad, but like, she was out there with him because they were already starting to treat her like that. So in my head, I'm rewriting it going, okay, you couldn't have come up with a scenario where she wasn't allowed to just bully her way to being on the ground with Hunter, but instead, when something happens to him for whatever reason, she's the only one who can reach him, or she's the only one who can get to him quickly, or the others are occupied with something and they don't pick up his signal, and she's not willing to wait, and she really wants something. There are plenty of reasons why she's not tagging along initially, but then goes to help and establishes, I have value as a squad member. But by him basically saying, yeah, I guess you are, and bringing her out on the mission, and then she proves her worth as a squad member, it's like, well, they weren't really restricting her as if she wasn't prior to that. And this is the kind of little stuff that is just irking me about the show in general. And maybe part of it has to do with its being designed in a way that is intended to be friendly for younger audiences. And look, that's not me saying that things for younger audiences are dumb or should be dumbed down, but like, they are frequently oversimplified and lacking in refinement, I find. Like, I think a lot of times things aimed at a younger audience ride on the idea that this audience isn't already familiar with a bunch of tropes and cliches and whatnot, so we can get away with doing some of these things that to an adult audience would be pretty predictable, but the kids might not guess it ahead of time. And again, that's fine, but I say this regularly. I can only come at this with the perspective I have, and I have the perspective of an adult fan who is well aware of tropes and has been calling almost every step of this plot so far, which doesn't make it bad, but again, does make it a little bit dull to talk about. It makes me feel like a grumpy bugger talking about it, because I feel like I'm just nitpicking the hell out of it, and people seem to be enjoying it, and I don't like, unless I think I have something really meaningful to add, or I think there's something really detrimental that needs to be pointed out, I don't really enjoy crapping on things all the time. Like, I'm perfectly willing to get critical of something that I have liked at other points. I mean, that happened with the Cobra Kai review recently, and I'll certainly call out bad episodes of Doctor Who, etc. But I'm now 3 episodes in, and I'm pretty sure I've spent more time every single time picking out things that didn't work as opposed to things that did. And if that's the tone I'm setting, that's one more reason that I'm like, I shouldn't be doing this episode by episode. But that's The Bad Batch, episode 3. What'd you think about it? Whatever your thoughts are, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. Like, share, subscribe. I got a Patreon. There probably won't be a link up there. I can't seem to get it to work in the break room. I've got it working again on the main channel, so there'll be a link in the description instead. That is my living. There are rewards for every tier. Check them out. But even if you can't, like, share, subscribe, help me out as well. But no pressure there either. Take a relaxed attitude around here, so just come on back next time you need a break.